I thought it would be just another quiet afternoon, tea cooling on the table, the clock ticking like a patient heartbeat, until my son stepped through my door without warning and told me something that changed the way I see him and myself. What he shared was simple, honest, and somehow earth-shaking. Still feel it echo when the house is quiet. Before I begin, tell me, where are you watching from tonight? Which city? Which corner of the country? I love picturing you there as I talk. Street Louis, Savannah, boys, maybe somewhere along the coast with gulls cutting the sky. Let me know. It makes this feel like a real conversation between us. My name is Amanda. I'm 49 and I live in a small house that knows my footsteps. Most days move along the kind path. Coffee, a list of chores written on a slip of paper, a walk down to the mailbox where the lilac hedge leans over the fence as if to read my mail with me. I've learned the comfort of routine and the comfort of silence, though sometimes silence can hold a note so long it makes your chest ache. On the afternoon I'm telling you about, the sunlight was that late gold kind that makes even a scuffed floor look precious. I'd just taken a pan of cinnamon scones out of the oven and the kitchen smelled like sugar in memory. Then I heard the door open. Mom. His voice came from the hallway, deeper than the last time, but carrying the same old map to my heart. Matthew. Wiped my hands on a towel without thinking. Is everything all right? He stepped into the kitchen with that careful smile of a man who has rehearsed a line and then forgotten it as soon as he saw his mother. A canvas backpack hung off one shoulder. There were travel creases in his shirt and a tiredness around his eyes that wasn't just from the drive. Can I come in? He asked, even though he already had. That's how you know someone was raised right. They still ask permission to take up space they've been welcome in their whole life. Of course, I said, pulling a chair out. Sit. Tell me everything. Do you want tea, coffee, water? Tea would be good. He looked at the plate cooling on the counter. And one of those, if I've timed this right. You always did have perfect timing for scones. I put a cup in front of him. The one with the crack in the handle that we both pretend isn't there, and slid a scone onto a napkin he didn't eat right away. He wrapped both hands around the mug and looked down into the steam like it might offered him a script. Started with the weather and the road. There was rain all the way over the ridge and a truck that couldn't decide what lane it loved. I told him how Mrs. Lore's cat had finally returned after 3 days gone, thin, indignant, and twice as proud. We traded these small pieces of the world the way you pass bread at the table, a thing to do with your hands while your courage arrives. Then he set the cup down and met my eyes. Mom, I wanted to come in person because I didn't want this to live inside a phone call. I'm listening, I said, and I meant it. I folded my hands in my lap so I wouldn't smooth his hair the way I did when he was 8 and worried about a spelling test. At 49, you learn which gestures are for you and which are for them. He glanced at the doorway, then back at me. Is now a good time? Yes, now is a good time. He exhaled. One of those long, careful breaths that sounds like someone moving a piece of furniture without banging it into the wall. I've been making some changes, real ones, and I wanted to tell you before the changes. Told you. I nodded slow because this was a sentence that would need a place to land. Go on. I left my job. He said it quietly, as if saying it too loud might summon the job back like a stray dog. 2 weeks ago I've been, I don't know, sprinting for years, and lately it felt like I was running toward a door that kept moving farther away. I kept telling myself the next raise would fix it. The next project would finally feel like mine. But he scratched his eyebrow with his thumb. Tell from childhood. Didn't. It was just more of the same. Didn't realize how loud it had gotten in my head until I sat in my car during lunch one day with the radio off and could still hear the noise. Matthew, I said, and his name felt like home, even in my mouth. Thank you for telling me. There's more. His smile was raw, brave. I've been meeting with someone, a counselor, 8 months now. I didn't want to say anything until I knew I'd keep going. We've been talking about the way I carry things, the way I tuck them into the corners and call it being strong. He says, strength deserves better tools. He laughed once softly, then looked at me carefully. And I've been sober since New Year's. I didn't. It wasn't dramatic. Moan. No. Rock bottom. Just a slow realization that my relax was making me foggy. And I want to be clear. I felt something in my chest shift, like a window that had been stuck finally giving to a gentle push. Not fear, not pity, relief. Maybe pride. The good kind, the kind that leaves room for the person you're proud of to keep being a person. I put my hand on the table, but not on his hand. May I take your hand? I asked. No one had to teach me that sentence. Life did. Yes, he said, and his eyes went soft in that way I remember from band concerts and scraped knees. I placed my palm over his knuckles and felt the warm human proof of him. I'm proud of you, I said. Not because you quit something, but because you started something. The kind of beginning that doesn't come with balloons. He smiled, and this time it reached the tired corners. Thank you. We sat like that for a minute, my hand on his shoulders easing down a fraction, as if someone had loosened a strap. The clock ticked. The kettle sighed. Outside, a neighbor's wind chime decided to agree with us. He took a breath. There's one more thing. I'm moving back home for a while. If you'll have me. The words didn't land like a surprise you have to catch. They landed like a truth that had been circling the house, looking for an open window. My throat tightened, but it wasn't because I was scared. It was because sometimes life gives you the chance to say yes to something you thought you weren't allowed to want. For how long? I asked. Because practical questions are love-wearing shoes. A few months, maybe longer, but not forever, he said. I found a short-term contract with the county project work for the parks department. It's part-time. I'll pay rent. I'll buy my own groceries. I don't want to be a weight on your life. Want to build a life that can stand. You won't be a weight, I said, and it came out steadier than I felt. You'll be a sound in the hole again. That's different. I paused, found the line where joy and good sense shake hands. We'll have rules for both of us. We'll write them down. He laughed. I knew you would say that. I am predictable in matters of paper. I love that about you. We moved to the porch to let the kitchen cool. The air had turned honey cold, and the maple across the street held the light in its cupped leaves. He told me how the decision had come. A Tuesday morning in a conference room with no windows, a slide deck that looked like every slide deck he'd ever seen. A sudden clear voice in his head that said, "This isn't it anymore." He drove home with the radio off again and listened to his life. That night he called his counselor and they spoke for an hour about the way leaving isn't failing. Sometimes it's the bravest. Staying with what's true. They talked about rent and the room at the back of the hall. It had become my sewing and dust bunny sanctuary. I promised him a closet and 2 dresser drawers, and he promised to build me shelves in the laundry room as penance for invading my quilt kingdom. He asked before offering a hug, and I said yes before thinking, because there are certain yes your body knows how to say without checking with your brain. Can I be honest about one more thing? He asked into my shoulder. Please. I was scared to tell you I'd left my job. I kept imagining you looking disappointed. I pulled back enough to see his face. Have I taught you that? To expect disappointment from me? He shook his head quickly. No, I think I taught that to myself. Somewhere along the way, I decided my value was a report I could hand someone. I forgot that I could just be me and that the people who love me would still recognize me. I still recognize you, I said. In fact, I think I see you better now. We spent the next hour in the gentle work of decisions. He'd move boxes in stages. He'd give his landlord 30 days. He'd keep his counselor appointment on Thursdays, even if it meant driving back into the city for a while. We'd eat at the table most nights unless one of us put a spoon in the dish and declare it a couch dinner, and we'd be clear with each other about who needed quiet, about when visitors were expected, about the difference between alone and lonely. We'd wrote it on a pad I keep near the phone, and both of us signed it like we were buying a house together. I suppose we were buying a way to live in one again. As twilight folded the street into itself, he stood to go. I'll be back this weekend with the first load, he said. I'll text before I come. And I'll bring dinner so you don't have to pretend the scones were enough. They were in fact never enough, I said. At the door, he hesitated, hands in his pockets like a boy with rocks in his fists. Mom, yes. Thank you for not turning this into a lecture or a celebration. Thank you for letting it be what it is. You're welcome, I said. And thank you for telling me the truth while it's still soft. It's easier to shape while it's warm. He laughed. You and your metaphors. Don't worry, I said. You'll get shelves out of them. After he left, the house felt both fuller and quieter. I walked down the hall and opened the door to the back room. Dust mote danced in the last line of light. I touched the top of the dresser, traced the ring where a mug had once sat with a half moon of tea beneath it. I tried to imagine the sound of his shoes again, the way he would sing under his breath when he thought no one was listening. It didn't feel like a regression. It felt like a continuation that had remembered its purpose. I made myself a small plate, one more scone, a slice of apple, and sat at the table with the paper where we'd written our rules. Beside it, I wrote another list, one of my own choosing. Listen without finishing his sentences. Ask before advice always. Let him be a man in the house, not a boy in a museum. Keep a light on in the hallway the first week just because. Before bed, I stepped out onto the porch. The night had taken the heat and left us the cool. Somewhere a dog barked twice, and then remembered its manners. The sky was in that generous mood where it shows you 5 stars before it unfolds the rest. I thought about the afternoon and felt the echo of his words travel through me again. Not an alarm, not a warning, an echo, the way a bell's tune lingers after you've stopped pulling the rope, a reminder that truth spoken gently and received with both hands can keep sounding long after the door has closed. I turned off the porch light and walked the hall to the back room one more time. I stood in the doorway and pictured him sleeping there, his bag at the foot of the bed, the window cracked to let in air. I pictured mornings where 2 mugs sat on the counter again, and evenings where we traded, how was your day, like baseballs you don't have to catch perfectly to keep the game going. I pictured the man he is becoming, and the mother I am still learning to be. When I finally lay down, the house settled in stages like it always does. The soft clack in the kitchen, the sigh along the vent, the neighbor's car door closing late. I listened until my breath matched the rhythm, and in that quiet I understood why this visit keeps echoing in my memory, because it wasn't a rescue, and it wasn't a crisis. It was a choice. A grown man asking to come home with dignity, a mother saying yes with boundaries, both of us agreeing to build a life that tells the truth out loud. Tomorrow, I'll dust the dresser and clear a drawer. I'll leave the window open for a while to let the room remember what it feels like to be useful. And when Saturday comes and he pulls into the driveway with boxes and that brave, tired smile, I'll be ready. With a screwdriver, with a list, with a pot of tea. The echo will still be there, but it will sound less like a memory and more like a beginning. The morning of his return with boxes arrived, with a kind of anticipation I hadn't felt in years. The house carried it too, quiet, like it was listening for him. I busied myself with practical things, wiping down the dresser drawers, stacking fresh towels in the closet, setting a lamp on the desk in his old room. I told myself it was just preparation, but really it was a way to steady my hands. When the sound of tires crunched in the driveway, I opened the curtain just enough to see his truck loaded with pieces of his life. The sight moved me in a way I didn't expect. It wasn't the boxes or the suitcases. It was the look on his face when he stepped out, that careful mix of resolve and relief. "Morning, Mom," he said, his voice carrying through the open door. "Morning," I answered, meeting him halfway down the walk. We didn't hug immediately. Instead, we looked at each other like two people both aware that something significant was starting. Then he smiled, and I opened my arms and he came into them with a familiarity that loosened the tightness in my chest. We spent the better part of the day carrying boxes and laughing at what they contained. Old mugs from college with Slobin's long since faded books with folded pages marking where he once stopped, a plant he claimed had survived against all odds. Each item carried not just weight, but memory, and I found myself watching him move through the house with a sense of ownership and ease. Around lunchtime, we sat on the porch steps, sandwiches in hand, the sky clear and wide above us. Was nervous, he admitted, driving here with all my things, afraid I'd feel like I was stepping backward. And now, I asked. He took a long breath, looked out at the street. Now it feels like stepping into something I should have never left behind completely. His honesty sat between us like sunlight, warm, steady, undeniable. I nodded, letting silence do some of the answering for me. That evening, after the last box was emptied, and the room finally resembled more of a home than a storage space, he leaned against the door frame and looked at me. "Thanks for letting me come back. I mean it. I know. It changes things for you. It changes things for both of us," I said, but not in a way I regret. "You're not just moving into this house, Matthew. You're moving into a new chapter, and I'm grateful to be part of it." Over the weeks that followed, we found a rhythm. He cooked dinner on nights when I was tired, filling the kitchen with aromas of garlic and spice that made me feel spoiled. I reminded him to rest when he worked too long at his new project job with the Parks Department. He fixed the back door that had been sticking for months. Left small notes by his coffee mug. Simple ones like, "Good luck today," or "Don't forget your lunch." There was an ease in our companionship, but also moments of tension, subtle and instructive. One evening, I suggested he take a break from work, and he bristled, saying, "I'm not a boy anymore, Mom." The words stung, but I reminded myself they weren't meant to hurt. They were his way of claiming space. Later, he came into the kitchen while I washed dishes and said softly, "I'm sorry. I know you mean well. I'm just trying to prove I can stand it on my own. And even here, I know," I told him, "and I'll keep learning how to step back when you need me to." That exchange, raw and real, left an impression that deepened our respect for each other. It wasn't about avoiding conflict. It was about learning how to honor it without letting it bruise us. Months slipped by, marked by small victories. The day he got his first paycheck from the new job, he brought home takeout and insisted we eat it on the porch with paper plates, declaring it a celebration. The evening we painted the community center together, covered in flecks of blue and laughter. I realized how much joy had returned to my days simply by sharing them. One Sunday, as autumn began to color the trees, we sat in the living room with mugs of tea, the quiet hum of the house wrapping around us. He turned to me, his expression serious. "Mom, I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll move out again. Maybe I'll stay close. But I Want you to know this time I'm choosing differently. I'm not chasing empty things anymore. I'm building something I can live inside of. And you've helped me remember how his words went straight through me, leaving that same echo as the day he first walked back into the house. I didn't need to answer with anything long. I just said, I'm proud of you, and meant it with every part of me. When I think about his unexpected visit now, I realize it wasn't just a return. It was a beginning. It taught me that even at 49, even at 62, even at any age at all, life still surprises us with new chances to grow, to reconnect, to see each other more clearly. And the echo of his words, the honesty, the courage, the hope still lingers in the walls of this house, reminding me daily that we're never too old for new chapters.